Hello, everyone. This is Independent Conservative. I am Ryan Bowling. Thank you all for joining me once again. So let's go on and start with the bull crap, right? Two Democratic senators are essentially asking the DOJ, the Department of Justice, to conduct an investigation against Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas. As you all know, is the only black conservative Supreme Court justice present, to conduct a investigation on him for supposedly receiving donations or gifts in excess of $200,000 at least, and using that money to buy luxury products. You already know where this is going. Let's get right into this article because I want you guys to hear the details of this, and then I'm going to give you my commentary on this nonsense that I see right up the front is simply an attack against what he believes in. So let's get right into this. Yeah, this type of stuff never ceases at all with these so-called Democrats of today. Democrats Senators Sheldon Whitehouse and Ron Wyden have asked the Department of Justice to launch a criminal investigation of Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas due to gifts he allegedly received. The two senators announced on Tuesday that they, quote, sent a letter to Attorney General Merrick Garland last week requesting he appoint a special counsel to probe whether Thomas violated ethics, false statements, and tax laws, per the Washington Post. The action marks a significant escalation in efforts by Democratic senators to address ethics controversies related to Thomas and the court in recent years. White House's staff said it was likely the first time anyone had requested a special counsel investigate a Supreme Court justice. Right there, read there. Notice what it says. White House staff said it was likely the first time anyone had requested a special counsel investigate a Supreme Court justice. Sounds similar to Trump's situation, right? You know, Trump being the first actual president or sitting president to be accused of being a felon. Sounds funny to me, man. Just sounds fishy to me. But anyway, White House sits on the Senate Judiciary Committee while Wyden chairs the Senate Finance Committee. Jeremy Fogel, a former federal judge and executive director of the Berkeley Judicial Institute, said the Justice Department had the legal authority to appoint a special counsel to investigate Thomas. But listen to this. But whether it would is another matter. They have the ability to do so. They have the authority to do so. But whether they're going to do it or not is another matter, because it's another bogus attempt once again. Inevitably, quote, inevitably will be seen as political retribution for rulings the justice made that they don't like, he said. Bingo. I just don't know how you get out of that box. The Justice Department has issued no comment on the request. Of course not. In their statement, White House and Wyden said that evidence shows Justice Thomas, quote, committed numerous willful violations of federal ethics and false statement laws. These people, I cannot stand these people. We do not make this request lightly, they said. The evidence assembled thus far plainly suggests that Justice Thomas has committed numerous willful violations of federal ethics and false statement laws, and raises significant questions about whether he and his wealthy benefactors have complied with their federal tax obligations. And then it goes on. Elliot S. Burke, the justice's attorney, previously said that Thomas, quote, has always strived for full transparency and adherence to the law. And of course he would. I'm going to give you the details of that in my commentary, including with respect to what personal travel needed to be reported, quote, end quote, adding that any failure to disclose were, quote, strictly inadvertent. The two senators specifically called on the DOJ to examine a, quote, $267,000 loan Thomas used to purchase a luxury motor coach in 1999. Now all of a sudden, y'all, I can't stand these people, man. Adding that they have not received adequate answers from Thomas about how he handled the matter, per the Post. 1999? That would be the least likely that he would do anything crazy, knowing how these fools are. Article goes on and says, Breitbart News reported last year, the Justice, let me calm down. I can't stand these people. These Democratic politicians, I cannot stand these far left radical goons. As Breitbart News reported last year, the Justice disclosed gifts received after financial disclosure rules were changed. And I'm not going into all this. I'm going to read some of this. Conservatives argue that this is reverse court packing. Of course, some liberal Democrats pushed legislation to increase the number of Supreme Court justices so they could add liberal members. Of course they did. Because if you add these liberal members into Supreme Court justice, then whatever decisions are made, you have less people going against it. When that failed, they started targeted campaigns to force the most conservative members of the court to recuse themselves from recuse themselves from high-profile cases. An end of article right there. Yeah. Anyone with any kind of discernment and good judgment skills could see right off the bat that this is clearly an attack against Chief Justice Thomas Clarence here right off the bat. Now, what I find interesting is the fact that I had just recently watched a 2-hour documentary on Chief Thomas Justice Clarence Thomas last night, actually. It was from the Epoch Times. I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with Epoch Times, but it was from Epoch Times and it was about 2 hours. And essentially, he just explained how he became the way he was. At one point, he became a radical Marxist, which is interesting because that is exactly what Thomas Sowell was when in his 20s when he went to the University of Chicago, I believe. He was a stone cold Marxist. I don't think he wasn't radical, but he was definitely a Marxist because he felt that all the injustices that he was suffering and all the injustices that he was observing in the black community in particular, that Marxism explained that better than anything that he had known up until that time. It wasn't until he saw the flaws, the gross flaws in Marxism economically and so forth, that he decided to change his course based on not someone telling him, not what he was taught, but from what he found out in his own personal research, that Marxism just doesn't work as an economic system or as a system per se. People always suffer horribly under Marxism/communism. Interesting, once again, because Clarence Thomas, during this documentary that I watched, stated that he had become a Marxist. After some, you guys got to watch it. It's Epoch Times. It's from Epoch Times. Like I said, I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with Epoch Times. That's a great news source. Very objective in their views. But he explained that in the documentary, and he explained it well, that at one point he was all in. He was all about doing the right thing and so forth until he heard some horrible racist remarks made to him and so forth. You got to watch the documentary. I think it's called Clarence Thomas in His Own Words. Somebody on that line from Epoch Times. Great documentary. But in the documentary, it shows that I think he was appointed, I think he was placed within the the Supreme Court, appointed the Supreme Court Justice in the 90s, I believe, by President Bush. From what I can remember in the documentary, from President Bush, had appointed him to be so. But ever since then, if you watch the documentary or if you've read about him, ever since then he has suffered all kinds of attacks from the committee. I think it's a Senate committee he had to stand before. He was attacked by that black lady, Anita Hill, accusing him of sexual harassment. And the things that she said about this man that he supposedly said was just crazy. And after watching this documentary and the kind of person that, based on this documentary that I saw, that I listened to and saw, was that doesn't sound like anything that this man would say. A total, complete contradiction. Now, that doesn't mean that people, are acted one way in public and in some way, it doesn't mean that. There are a lot of people out there that in public, they're the greatest thing you've ever seen, the greatest person you've ever heard, but in private, they're nasty so it doesn't mean that that's not possible. I'm not saying that, but watching that documentary and listening to what I was hearing, the accusations coming from Anita Hill and so forth my heart, my gut instinct was like, this man could not have said any of this nonsense. And he vehemently denied it during the Senate committee interview. Okay, so but he was attacked. I mean, they were calling him all kinds of names. They were coons. This, of course. I mean, these were all the names, interestingly enough, that I was called when I first became a conservative in a political era. I was called all kinds of names on Facebook, and it was just horrible. I mean, it didn't matter what I said. It didn't matter what names I gave, what historical facts I gave, or anything like that. It didn't matter. People black people in particular, blacks, they were the ones attacking me the most. In particular, just refused to believe anything I had to say. I was a member of the racist Republican Party, and I needed to be shunned at all costs. That's why I pick my battles wisely now, okay? Like, just recently, Monday, I was outside. I was at my job, and I'm outside, posted, outside Tower City. And one of the security guards that usually stays inside Tower City, it's called the front portico, came out to talk to me. And he always talks to me. He's an older guy. He's like in his early to mid 60s. He's an older guy. Coolest guy. More to the right than he is to the left. I mean, in fact, I think he's conservative. Not that I know, but he is conservative. I mean, we, start talking and stuff. Somehow, he just knew I was that way. Kind of like I could sense it. He just knew it. Anyway, we were talking about some situations and circumstances, talking about politics, talking about different things of that nature. And then a younger guy came out. Black guy came out. Young guy, had to be in his 20s. And we began to have, somehow the subject of politics came up. And I'm just condensing some of this. I'm trying to go by what I remember. But I remember the young black man talking about, he began to talk about how whites owe reparations. I mean, every talking point from the left and the Democratic Party, he just started spewing out. And me and the other guy, the older guy, was like, oh, my God, man, you really honestly believe that? But let me tell you, but let me just put it out here. Let me just go ahead and condense this. I began to explain to him the Republican Party, the Democratic Party, all the different dates and times, how this stuff started. And I was shocked that he was like, oh, man, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. I was shocked that this young man was willing to actually listen and learn, rather than the experiences I've had with so many black people who vote Democrat. And I started talking about the Democratic Party and what they really are and what they really is all about, and the Republican Party and what they really was all about, and so forth, particularly in the past, and giving dates and names and history and all of that, as opposed to, you ain't nothing but, man, you ain't a coon. You a coon. Forget everything I just said. You just a coon. You just a bootlicker. You just a nothing, this, that, and the MNF, and the MNF, man, F you, and all. I mean, literally, that's what they were saying. I've suffered more persecution from black Democratic voters and liberals than I have ever suffered as a Christian. I mean, like, literally. Like, dude. And I was shocked that this young black man was willing to listen. I was like, man, wow. He's like, man, thank you. I did not know that, man. I didn't know. Now, whether it changed his mind or not, I don't know. But it was very encouraging to hear another black man that I talked to that actually sit and listen and learn versus flying off the handle like so many of them I've talked to in the past. Just ridiculous nonsense. Not even trying to learn, not even trying to accept the fact that maybe perhaps their worldview is not the right worldview, or maybe perhaps some of the facts they have is miscrewed. Maybe they've been blinded. They never come to that conclusion. And what's my point? My point is that going back to Chief Justice Clarence Thomas here, yeah. I mean, this poor man has suffered all kinds of name calling from the time he was appointed to office until now. They have been trying to attack this man from day one. And no matter what he does, they still attack him. And clearly these two Democrat senators are trying to attack him because of his stance against certain policies. I find it interesting that him being the only black conservative justice, that they would be attacking him like this. Now, I don't know if these two Democratic senators are white or black, but I will say this, going back to the documentary that I watched, when he was a young man and he was sitting before the Senate committee, and guess who the senator was, the main senator was, sitting right in the middle? That zombie that we have now of a president, Biden. Talking crazy. You know what I'm talking about, and you and I both, this is what he was saying. I'm talking about what Biden was saying to Clarence Thomas. You know what I'm talking about, and you and I both know what the situation is, and it was just ridiculous nonsense that he was talking about. But anyway, summarize all of this, right? After these accusations and so forth from Anita Hill, that person, if you want to call her that, lied on him and so forth. That man was so broken and so disheartened, but he stood his ground. And he sat up there and he said these words, and I'm paraphrasing his words. In his defense, he says, I find it interesting. This is what he said. He says, I was never attacked by the skinheads. I was never attacked by the KKK. I was never attacked by any violent white racist group. He says, what my attacks come from is this committee right here. He said that this is I think he said a political lynching or some kind of lynching. I cannot remember exactly what it was, with tears in his eyes. And what he was saying was, and every last one of those people on that committee were white. And I think they were Democrats. Because that's how white Democrats think. That's how they thought then. That's how they think now. I'm talking about the politicians. They were racist then. They're racist now. And all they want blacks to do is think the way they want you to think. Blacks are not supposed to think outside the box that the Democratic politicians give them. When you start talking about thinking about for yourself, the white Democrats and white liberals do not like that. They want you to always think of yourself as a victim, because that way they can control you. I don't know why. I'm not saying anybody. I'm just saying in general. I'm not preaching to anybody here. I don't know why more black people don't see that. For whatever reason, they just don't see that. They think being empowered is going to the government and asking for reparations. Just real crazy stuff. How'd you get in power by constantly begging the government to give you reparations? They ain't going to give you any money. The best object to that is for black people to just go ahead and do what they need to do. Get a job, go to school, make something out of yourself, develop your skills and talents, and become somebody versus constantly begging the government to give you something. It's not going to happen. That's not empowerment. That's slavery. That goes back to the plantation, to rural South, where the slaves were totally dependent on who? The slave masters, which were Democrats. 99.9% of them Democrats. So Clarence Larkin sitting before these people, these senators who were all the Senate committee, who were all white, was nothing more than a lynch mob that he basically said, you're nothing more than a lynch mob in so many words. You just haven't taken a physical rope and lynched me like the KKK would have. You're doing it here. And guess what they're trying to do right now? They're trying to do the same thing with that man now. They're trying to do the same thing with him now. Lynch him. They got to find something because they don't like the decision he made. I think he had something to do with presidential immunity. I think he may have had something to do with that. His decision on that, I think. I'm not certain. Correct me in the comment box if I'm wrong. But they just got to attack him. They got to find something. But of course, they're Democrats. They're Democrats. They don't want no NIGGAs thinking outside the box. No, boy, sit back in your box, boy. Think the way we want you to think, boy. You're a boy to us. We don't want you thinking outside the box. If you don't vote for Biden, you ain't black. You don't know who you are, boy. That's what they saying. Oh, man, y'all know. Look, I'm going to tell it like it is. I don't like them. They were racist then, they're racist now. They just racist in a different way. But I just wanted to talk about that. Yeah, I wanted to bring that out. Yeah. This is clearly an attack on his political views. Give it up, people. He's not going anywhere. And like he said, I'm going to close the video for sure this time. In the interview, at the end of the Senate committee interview in a documentary, they asked him and said, Joe Biden, Senator Joe Biden asked him, I think it was Joe Biden asked him, are you willing to, what is Thomas going to do? What is Thomas's decision on? What is he going to do? And Thomas said, I'm going to keep going. I'd rather die than stop. If they're going to kill me, let them kill me. And here he is. He's still by the grace of God. So do what you're going to do. I'm standing for what is right. Because I trust and believe liberals and racist Democratic politicians are not going to die for their cause, per se. They'll run like scared cats. And they always do. Because when conservatives say, you don't come over here and talk about running over my house and breaking in my house and attacking me and attacking my children and attacking my property because you don't like my worldviews. It's on like Donkey Kong. They'll go skimpering like little scared cats. Because that's what they are, in my opinion. Because that's all I've observed from them. That's all I've observed from them. Now, I'm not saying anyone here, but that's what I've observed and experienced from them. They're cowards. When I start giving real factual data and so forth and really explaining things, they back off. They start calling me names and all this. Well, why don't you just come up with factual data? Why don't we have a valid argument versus you calling me names and Uncle Toms and bootleggers and all this bootlickers or whatever you want to call the other dumb stuff? Because when they get to that point now, I don't even bother to waste my time. I'm smarter than that now. Get away from me, be gone. I don't even bother. I kick the dust off my feet and I go on. If you don't want to hear my view, if they don't want to hear my view, bye. I ain't even argue with you. I only talk to people whose minds are open, who's willing to listen. Because I listen to them, but I still hold to what I believe in, okay? It's just the way it is. But yeah, that's what I think about this. It's another attack against another conservative, point blank. What do you guys think? Leave your comments in the comment section below, like, share, subscribe to my video and my channel. God bless you all and see you again.